Hi, welcome to Pop Chat. Let me see if I can get this bright light out of my eyes that I just turned on. There we go. My name is Annette
Perfect.
Tarpley. I am the founder of the Passion of Poetry, and I'm very excited today to have with me Jody Scott Kaplan from the United States. He lives in Connecticut. Welcome, Jody. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm thankful for you having me, Annette, and being on your fabulous group.
Thank you. A pleasure to have you. There's so much that I want to know about you. You have a very interesting background, and and you just have many talents, and you have a plethora of life that I'm sure you have to share with people because I know that you've walked more than one walk of life. So I'm going to start out by giving the stage to you, and I want you to tell us about Jody and whatever you want to divulge, personal, writing, whatever it is that you want to have us know about you. So you take the stage, sir.
Well. Thank you. So I'm one of the things is I believe in multitasking in life, stirring gray matter, recreating yourselves. I probably start off helping help. I started off living near the shoreline in New York, often going to the beach, and then also on the side helping my father with different business things. Probably flea markets and sales when I was like 10, working my way through other things and enjoying writing, enjoying reading, enjoying being around the water, swimming. And I did 23 years of law enforcement as a police officer in some of the areas around New York City. Followed by often, I realized something as I was talking to people on the job that a lot of people wouldn't communicate with people in the community as much. And I thought that it was important to have those conversations, have dialogues, talk about things actually going on and what was affecting them. And it kind of, I think it helped me, and I think it helped them a lot of times and figure out some tense situations. I do have a lot of, I do have a lot of people that follow me. I create meditations, sing. I have a few different writing groups. I do creative workshops, and I'm involved in the holistic community a bit. I think language is part of the thing we need for healing and moving forward from the pandemic. And I think arts in the whole thing, from paintings, from speaking, from poets to music, they're all the diplomats that we need to help get through different challenges in our life, to help interpret hard and give each other a voice.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's with me. My dad told me, I said this many times, at a very young age, you got to keep this and this busy. So I've always kept busy doing crafts or whatever. Before I did poetry, I used to make jewelry, and now I pretty much write. But I do psychiatry right now, and I've done psychiatry on and off through the years. When I did it in private practice, I used to tell people and still tell people, it's energy, anxiety, all those that stuff is energy that you can funnel into something positive. Find something that you love and that you're passionate about. I did drug rehab for about 3 months last summer, and one night I was outside, and one of the patients was, I gotta leave, I gotta start using. I said, let's go write, because when she first came in, she said she was a poet. So we wrote a poem together. It's on YouTube actually. It's called I Am Your Addiction. But the thing about that was I really think she would have left that night. And she ended up staying and going further and really going on to help herself. So you touch one life, which I'm sure you've touched many, through your career, even as a police officer.
Yeah, certainly. And the funny thing about that is helping others and interacting with others, giving them voice, giving yourself voice. We're all healing and growing and profiting from it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely it's definitely a shared thing.
Yeah, because I'm sure you saw many things as a police officer. I was an ER nurse for many years and a forensic nurse examiner for many years and dealt with police officers for many years. And I used to be married to a police officer. My first husband was a police officer. Um, that experience wasn't so good. But, other than that, I highly respect police officers. I think they have a tough job. And I
Oh,
even,
thank you. And you also. I
yeah, I
think
even,
mental health professionals, and I mean, I think that's just one of the most underfunded, underrealized need. In the
Yeah.
community, people send people to doctors. People assume that this, when people think there's, let me just get back to this. There's a face value assessment I think people tend to do. If it happens to them, if it happens to somebody immediately by them, then they realize there's a need. If there's not, too often it's overlooked. And when somebody's suffering, when somebody's got something going on with a mental health issue or some other issue, it affects their immediate people, it affects the whole community. It has a branching out process. And
Yeah.
the costs that we incur in reality are more than if we actually got the care that people could need, because we bounce them around from different buildings and different jurisdictions and different outlooks without knowing where to really send them.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think it's frustrating for people. I always tell people we all have mental health issues. It's just to what extent, all of us have stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's how we deal with it a lot of times, or how we process it and are able to handle it or cope. Um, some people can go through some, horrific things and still be able to manage, life, where other people adjust, you know, puts their life in a standstill for
I
years.
think they definitely need, yeah, I think Annette, you definitely need to figure out some sort of a coping mechanism, so some sort of spot that centers you, that helps balance you.
Yeah.
Some place, in my writing, is an example. I have serenity, which is drifting gently in a sea, feeling the coolness of the water, the tranquility of a breeze, alive and free. And I've used that as a mantra of sorts to go through a long CT scan or MRI,
Yeah.
that in the Yellow Submarine, going back and forth in my head from the Beatles. And it's amazing. If you plant some things where you can firmly then transport yourself to another spot and then remember your breath and remember other things, it brings you back.
Yeah, indeed. One thing I've quoted to many people over the years, people that I've dealt with as far as patients, and then I did corrections for a while. So I even quoted it to some of the inmates because, they're people too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, of
Um,
course.
yeah. So, but it's a quote from, do you know the poem Desiderata by Max
Yeah,
Ehrman?
of course.
Okay. So it has this piece, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. And beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are
Mm-hmm.
a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. It's just this profound statement I wish I would have wrote. So,
Well,
but
and I think as time, I mean, we're all a work in progress.
yeah,
We learn, I think often we're just too harsh on ourselves and not realizing that we are only human, and that's part of the plus, part of the challenge, but we can move forward through amazing things. One thing as a police officer I realized was that you have to do different takes on humanity. I've seen some of the lowest that humanity could reach, but I've also seen some of the highest. And that's it. I mean, I've been at scenes where literally I was at scenes of somebody that's been murdered a few times or somebody that's left someplace, and but yet I've been at other scenes where somebody stopped to help that didn't know anybody, where somebody's reached out, where somebody gave of themselves. The
yeah,
last case I actually had was somebody, I had been at a scene of somebody that had drowned 2 days earlier trying to rescue his friend. And I ended up 2 days later helping getting him out of the surf.
wow,
And it's sad, but he gave himself for
yeah,
somebody else's light to move forward. And I always think that when we have that energy about us, that essence about us, even if you had no religious concept, we put that out there, we carry it, it impacts the world, it becomes something that's interwoven. It becomes part of that tapestry that is life. And we carry those we've lost forward in our hearts, just like lockets.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure with him, it's the same thing. Somebody has him held close, even though he's no longer with us.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I was watching something the other day. It's actually a little video that came up on Facebook. Some guy talking about angels, which I believe I have some really strong guardian angels, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. But I think that, just being, I do random acts of kindness all the time. I just, constantly I'm not in a position now I could do it at least monetarily, but I was and working in the nursing home the other day, and I was like, I would smile to the resident. I said, this is a free gift, and
Yeah.
I'd like smile to them, because even smiling is such a great thing, isn't it?
Well, you're right. And body language, when you talk about, let's get back to language. When we talk about language, there's needs for that variety because from body language to a smile to a hug, I think a hug is language. Laughter is language.
Yeah,
Even if you don't know what somebody is about, even if you don't know what their linguistics are, if you both laugh at something that happened or laugh in whatever form, it can be in satire, it can be in something else, but that sharing the moment and realizing you're on the same page and that you've been heard. And that's what's so important. I think, with politics now, I kind of think often, I'll just dwell for a second. I kind of laugh and think that depending on what TV channel we watch, we should wear different T-shirts like their sports teams, and we've been fed these different things. Because the reality is, when we go to basic human need, we're much closer than what's been getting sold for us. If you reach out, you have a lot of people that feedback and actually want to talk and actually want to discuss real issues and actually just want to feel like there's somebody listening and understand what's going on.
yeah,
What I
and
did when I did, I had to make choices of how I was going to perceive, like I'm saying, with humanity the other day. And I think in my career, and I've had the same thing with personalities. When you come across somebody sometimes that's a grump or very withdrawn, sometimes your first thing is to assume that they're somebody you don't want to interact with. And then
yeah,
sometimes what you realize is that that's actually their protective shell, that they're really so much more there, that this is what it's become.
yeah,
And when you talk to them and you get through, if you can, they become sweethearts. And you're like, wow, you were really under there. You're hiding all this. Like, it's kind of
yeah,
that old deal of psychiatry, like the mask we wear or the
yeah,
roles we play,
yeah.
which we get cast into many.
I remember years ago, I saw hundreds and hundreds of victims. The years I was forensic nurse examiner, and I think in our mind, Hollywood has put a picture into our mind on how a rape victim should react, and that is, scared. They're kind of gun shy. That kind of image is in your mind on how they should react. But I can tell you, almost none of them reacts that way. And I can
Right.
remember two specific instances where it happened, but one of them was a nursing student that was next door to where the hospital was. There's a nursing, uh, school, and she was very tough girl exterior. Probably one of those that would have kicked my butt when I was younger. She had this very tough girl, exterior. And she came in, and I was examining her, and she just started crying like a baby. And she said, "All my life, I have acted this way to prevent stuff like that from happening to me." And then it happened.
Yeah.
And I just felt so bad for her because she
Yep.
just felt so vulnerable. All those years she's trying to, make that not happen. And it did. And it just, I'll never
And
forget it.
people to this day still miss the violence of everything aspect of it. They still blame the victim and they still assume, and
Yeah.
it still goes on. That's why I think, you know, what we run into sometimes too is the one thing I wrote a while back was knowledge and ignorance, a two-edged sword best tempered by tolerance.
Is that a quote or is it a
That's a
poem?
quote I wrote.
I like
That's
that.
something I wrote because I think about it. It's like as you learn, you realize different things. You realize what you don't know, and you realize sometimes what we need to be patient with those that don't know, and hope that you can have a conversation and or we can learn from where we're at and move forward, because a lot of times it's ignorance just over a fact or what's been portrayed or what's been sold, like you're saying. I'd be at crime things or be checking out a car or doing things, and people would quote movie shows for search and seizure. People would actually be like, no, I know
Really?
what this is about, you can't do that.
Yeah. They
Because
know. Yeah.
they saw it on TV.
Isn't it? It's kind of comical almost. But I bet that your career as a police officer is just serves as a wealth of knowledge for you to what you currently do. Which do you mind telling people kind of what you do as far as your business and so forth?
Yeah, so I do creative writing workshops. I'm a life coach. I sing. I love What a Wonderful World, some of the other classics.
I heard it
And
the other day. I heard you singing that.
thank you. Yeah, I sing. It's funny. We get back
Love
to
that
this
song.
whole story of labels. I didn't really sing for years. I've been doing the writing. I've been doing the poetry. I've been doing the other things. I've been reaching out to people. I've been marketing things in other ways. But I
Yeah.
didn't do the singing. And it goes back to like when I was like 16, and somebody when you go to chorus and they go, they go testing your singing, and they go, oh no, you're like I felt like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, where I was the one that didn't pass the test and was whirled away. But you get stuck with these labels,
Yeah.
and it's a good 40 years until I started actually doing things like that again.
Is that always been something you've done or that you've wanted to do?
I've always sung a little bit here and there, just never singing out and never at places. And then I finally said, I really have gotten tired of labels and us putting people in spots. As you know, if you put somebody, it's funny, you can put somebody that's not advanced placement in an advanced placement course, and sometimes that person will achieve it because they're there, and that's what their position is.
Yeah.
People sometimes react to the labels, good or bad, and the labels then also box us in. And that's what
Yeah.
I kind of hate. They that quote about the room with a door, right? Leaving the door open.
What is that?
There's people this speech of leaving a door open, like leaving a window open to possibilities.
Oh,
But the problem with that is that once you even have the framework of the building, you've got confines. You're already boxed in your thought. So you're already
yeah.
limiting the process. You're already not out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true.
when you get rid of some of these labels, like on the beat, I'd often hear in new police officers, they often would think a homeless person was the most likely one to watch sometimes, or the most likely one that could be doing something, as the general public might too.
Right.
They thought that the person in the suit was the least harmless, was the least harmful. There's these assumptions. That's why people get dressed up to go to court. They get dressed up, they get a nice cute pic when they're 15 or
Yeah.
whatever, and they put their picture in the thing. But the assumptions don't really work. You really need to scratch below the surface of things.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. There's a lot of substance beyond the shell, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And there's a lot
What?
of gifts. That's the thing. We're wasting. That's why we need these conversations, need voice. We need people that are actually, we need the arts. We need all these different things.
I
We
love
need all that
talking to
care.
homeless people. I love talking to homeless people and finding their story out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important. I remember one time I met a guy out in public, like a concert, and it was kind of a dating site, but we were just going to go to the same concert. And he's supposed to be some award-winning photographer or something. So he's showing me his little repertoire, and everybody was somebody. This is the CEO of this. This is, I mean, everybody was a big shot. And finally, this is so bad. I finally looked down and I said, "Oh, do you have any pictures of any homeless people telling their story?" And that really ticked them off, of course. Of course. And so that was the end of that.
Right.
So, yeah, so I horribly offended him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of meant to a little bit. I'm not usually that aggressive, but I thought, don't care. Because I don't care who you are. If you're the CEO, the person mopping the floor, to me, the person mopping the floor just has just as much importance in life. So, it's very important to me. So I
Yeah, and
want
it's it.
to listen. I'm sorry. Go
You
ahead.
no, you're right. And I mean, there's always that deal when you're approaching somebody, dealing with somebody, especially if you're in one of these jobs, that you have to be conscious of, you have to be careful of. I'd run into people that sometimes that I'd steer another way because I thought that they were paranoid. I thought they were something else, that I didn't want to instigate anything,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that was also trying to kind of facilitate things,
Yeah.
and that's getting back to that healthcare part that's so needed. And I think the system sometimes, like I used to feel bad that people were homeless and off their meds.
I know, and a lot of times, most of them have psychiatric problems and try to self-medicate, and that's why they're on the streets, right? I mean, it's a
Right.
large
And that's part of what,
population. Yeah.
that's part of my homeless situation that I would have with people, because I would get people that you'd see late at night, they'd be on the fringe,
Yeah.
and it would be worse for me to try to force them into something.
I watched something remarkable the other day. Another one of those things I think popped up on Facebook, and it was about a retired nurse who was worried about the homeless population, and she had been doing her thing to kind of help the community. But what she did was she got some kind of an organization or somehow got grants and funds to where she actually built like little houses in communities for the homeless people so they'd have
Mhm.
a home. It was remarkable. I mean, I and the people would be just so humbled by it, of course, um, they might have been shunned by their family who don't care for them, and yet this stranger is so generous, and yeah, so there's
Well, and it
lots of
takes,
stories like
and
that.
it's, and you went back before when you were saying about it's not always a monetary thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just sitting there. Like I remember freezing one day because I was sitting at an intersection with a woman that was injured somewhat, and holding her hand just until the ambulance came there to help her feel secure. People don't realize, or they get these pictures that every commitment is a 40-hour commitment for them to do something. Sometimes it's 20 minutes of checking on somebody, it's holding a door,
Yeah.
it's doing something of, I'll tell you, one of my little side things now is I do a few hours at a pharmacy store as a shift lead, and I'm
Cool.
only there for like 15 hours a week, literally. But I sing good morning to them. I tell them jokes. I tap out music. I sing songs. I get them involved, and I ask them how they are and how things are going.
You are the highlight. Probably all kinds of people have switched their prescriptions over to your pharmacy just so they
Well,
can.
if you want to hear a really funny thing, one day I was sitting there, and one person asked me for a business card. I had three people in a row ask me for business cards, and I was
Oh,
like, I appreciate it.
yeah, but
It is.
I
I think
think it's so
we do
important,
need more of
though.
that, though.
Yeah, of course. I think everybody needs to know they have importance and worth, and that they have purpose, and
Yes.
we all want that.
Yep.
And
No, that's so true.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that I realized a while back the difference between we get to these mindsets of things. The difference between an optimist and a pessimist often is that they can have the same circumstance in the same day, and the pessimist will think they had a lousy day, and the optimist will think that they had a good day. They'll find something in it, and then they'll have a better day the next day. You
yeah,
can't plant those. You can't let it surround you. Let that energy. It's like when I talk to people, it's like you can surround yourself with positive people, but you need to have that positive energy starting in yourself, and you need to broadcast that energy in order to have it sweep in, or they won't want to be around you either. But if you change your mindset,
yeah.
the rest of it tends to follow in place.
Of course, yes, indeed. Have you read the book? And I haven't finished the whole auto. I do Audible books because I travel a bit, and so I that's how I can kind of do them. But it's called one of my admins, Sai Prakash. I don't know if he's watching now from India, but he told me about it. It's called something the monk who sold his red Ferrari.
I haven't yet.
Yeah, make sure you do that because it's
Okay.
especially in your line of work and what you do. It just has a lot of wisdom. It's actually a story, but it has
Hmm.
this wisdom in it, and it's remarkable. But I want you to go ahead and share some of your pieces with us. I'm going to give the stage to you because I am really anxious to hear what you have to share with us.
Okay. Any idea of topic?
You can do whatever you want. You are in
Okay.
control.
So I'm going to start off with one that's touched me through the pandemic. It's a little long, so I'm going to start off with that one. It's Pandemic Blues. It's almost lyrically sung at spots. And it's from the period where there wasn't too much resolved yet with the pandemic as far as healthcare, where it was moving along and we were trying to move forward, but it was still at a challenge. It's dated December 1st, 2020. So we didn't have much going on as far as help, and we had everybody kind of debating things. Pandemic blues, these losses too great, too much to bear. Politics, too much the same. Not a time for fame nor a walk lightly taken. For our steps are heavy, our hearts are strained. Our thoughts seek more than the same old story, one of endless tales of cants and whys, of healthcare overpriced, lacking, or politicized, of lives too short, of time too long, of songs of endless tales, both long and short. These losses too great, the burdens heavy, when hearts carry one another. Through waters running deep, through waters running deep. The sun will shine once more, my friends, the coffee shared with lighter tales. Yet the table's now set, leaves hearts still heavy. Still waters run deep when there's no time to rest, when there's no time to rest. Pandemic blues, a heavy burden, one where all see challenges to bear and carry past the shallows. Still waters run deep when hearts are challenged for breath. It tears me up, these lines I sing, when all should be united, yet divided, the story. The sea needs to part to remember our humanity. Still waters run deep when we lack unity. Pandemic blues can see less shadow when we see each other, more light when we pull together. The seas may part once more to see, not the same old story, one of grace and love, not politicizing these lines I sing, not out of hate, nor lightly sung, but a twist of fate. We need each other for the burden to lighten, the seas need to part. For hearts can see when shown a path, one of unity, of voices raised as one. Past politics, medical cost, past divides so deeply set, we forget their beginnings, yet carry their threats of an action with distance too great. The overtones drag us under a sad wave of faith. Yet our voices need breath, those suffering a chance, those we love to be heard. Past polarization, past the status quo, our love should carry us, not sink us like foe. Together we can do better, together we must. History will reflect our burdens well past the dust. We can lighten the burdens of still waters running deep, be that life raft, that diplomat, the songs shared that reminds unity is a breath of hope. Pull together past the rhetoric, lighten someone's heart. For these losses, too heavy, too hard to bear. United, they're lighter, though challenged still, history will reflect an iron will. One of pulling together for our fellow man, not lost in the same old political frying pan. Still waters run deep, our hearts are heavy, yet with love, putting aside our differences, we just might breathe a bit easier and save some loved ones too.
Wow, that's beautiful, Jody. Very
Thank you,
beautiful.
thank you.
You write with depth and meaning. And yeah, that's wonderful. You're a great writer.
That,
I'm impressed.
thank you. I
Or
appreciate.
whatever they do. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes,
I can't click my fingers so good, so you know.
that's
Um,
okay. It's the thought.
yeah, it's a
Yeah, I was
virtual
getting,
click.
like you, through the virus, I was getting a lot of people that were talking about losses, a lot of things that were going on. I had one of my kids is an emergency responded to an EMT, and he kept transporting. He was doing the hospital transports, and he kept dealing with it, and
Yeah,
almost changed careers because it's so difficult.
yeah. I tell you, if they make me have one more COVID shot, I'll change careers because I'm pretty sure that gave me blood clotting issues. So you know, I won't
Yeah.
have I won't have them anymore. But the
Well, good.
pandemic, the pandemic was bad in many ways, but lots of things bloomed out of it. Lots of positive, things, including, the poetry community. We really united all across the world, and I think it was a time for us to come together and really realize that our similarities are so much greater than our differences, right? Yeah.
Well, that's it. We had the general thing in so many countries of being either locked down. or 6 foot distance or things that are similar, and
Yeah.
then being mentally locked down,
Yeah.
because the stresses during the time, we really needed to have those voices heard. And,
Yeah.
for singers too, I was doing open mics, and I was doing reads, and I was doing things online. I had a cool thing. I was invited by a Unitarian church nearby to be their presenter on a Sunday service, and I did 2 meditations. I did "What a Wonderful World," "Lean on Me,"
Cool.
and some other. It was amazing. It was so nice to share with everybody.
It was very lonely for those of us who are like single, because other households where someone has a spouse or children or people they live with, at least they have somebody.
Right,
But it became very, very lonely when you're by
right.
yourself. And you
Well,
just
that's another reason though. We got to remember that hearts. We have borders, we have boundaries, but hearts, literature,
yeah,
internet, it can have a positive with that.
yeah. Oh
I had one day you'd laugh at me because I'm sure you've experienced this, but I reach out periodically to some of my followers, and one day I called one of them from. I have this amazing guy Cozy, who's similar age to us, and he's in
does he
Japan, and
does
he
he
loves the Beatles.
did you have a cup of coffee? Coffee. I was trying to figure out how you say coffee. Coffee.
I'm a coffee. Yes.
Coffee.
I'm
Coffee.
not quite Bostonian. I'm not. I get accused of being Bostonian sometimes, but
Your
New
your
York accent is
coffee
pretty heavy too.
isn't your coffee a little Bostonian? I think
No,
so.
well, they go car.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
go car. Where did it go? It's really funny. It is different, but some people don't realize.
So you're calling
But
up your guy.
yeah, so what happened was amusing. How we got into this with meeting is an interesting story in and itself, because I got shared by somebody that followed me in an English poetry group in Liverpool. So
Cool.
this person in Japan was a member of that same poetry group because he likes and loves the Beatles.
Oh, nice.
So Liverpool, so he found me from that poetry group in Liverpool and added me and started following me, and then we became friends. And I'd listen, and he plays the Beatles, has the glasses, and has really
Oh,
got a beautiful
wow.
voice, and it's got piano kicking.
That's cool.
So the one day anyway, the one day in the morning, I or the one day in the evening about 5 o'clock, I got up and figured let me call him and say hello. Well, it was 5 o'clock in the morning for him.
Yeah.
You forget these time changes, and he was so polite that he picked up the phone anyway. We had like a 5 minute chat before I told him to go back to sleep.
That's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I've met some marvelous people. It's been a big support system for me. So I
Mm-hmm.
gave you a challenge. I think I might start doing that a little bit more. I did one yesterday with the other person I was with.
Oh, let me see if I can find the
And
challenge. I
so the
throw clumps of
challenge,
paperwork. I'm
yeah.
notorious for clumps of paperwork.
So the challenge I've been doing lately, and I think you're only about the fourth person, but I have been challenging people to pick a title, and we both write on it. And you picked the title. I was very interested in your title, and I want. Did you find it, sir? Did you find it?
Yes, give me 1 second.
That's okay. I want you
I'm a
to.
paper talker. People laugh at me because I go with a stack of like 50 pages and then I use them like conversation.
Oh my
And I could
goodness.
probably do it off the top of my head. I do.
Really? Wow.
I've been, so give me a 1 word prompt on any subject.
Bullying, because I wrote a great poem about
What is
bullying.
it? Oh,
Bullying.
bullying?
Because I wrote a great poem about bullying. So it's a story.
Was it bowling or bullying?
Bullying.
Bullying. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Ned. You are a little low on my end of it. So, bullying. I went out today intending for my voice to be heard, but then heard something that set me back, left me wanting. The light that had existed became shadows, shadows that clogged my day, that kept the words deep in my throat, that made my heart freeze for a moment. I reached out, trying to see why, but yet just again was left in the same spot. My breath felt short. I withdrew. I sat all alone once more. May a door open that'll set my voice free once more. May it be heard. May my heart be able to be one with thee, one walking, one just not bullied.
Wow, that's great that you can just come up with that. I want to be able to do that too. I tried to do it one time, but I'm not so sure it worked.
Can I give
So,
you an idea on it?
I'm sorry, sir.
Can I give you an idea on it?
Go ahead.
So one thing I do is I've realized a while back, if you think of a word and you assign it history,
Hmm.
think about what the word or the prompt meant to you yesterday, what it means to you now, and what it might mean to you tomorrow.
Wow.
It's an evolution of self.
Wow.
You actually then see how that same thing like an emotion has changed now and you're interpreting it differently.
So it's an evolution, isn't it?
It's an
Wow.
evolution of a word, of
Mhm.
language, of heart,
Wow. Love
and of
that.
what you might want tomorrow to be.
Yeah. Do you ever write fiction? Do you ever do stories?
I do. And it's, well, okay. I want to hear yours, and then I just want to read you Holiday Grinches because it's kind of
You want to
fictional,
hear
but
my
go ahead.
story? You want to hear my story?
I want to hear your poem.
Oh, I thought you meant the bullying poem. No, 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 no. Um, yeah, the one I want to hear yours first. You get to go
All
first.
right, let me get, so this is, do you
You can
like the
tell
Cat in
me
the
if it's
Hat, Dr.
healthy.
Zeus?
Go
Let's
ahead.
do, we're going to do Holiday Grinches, which is really a Grinch
Okay.
that's kind of close to me and I love it because it's one that is not perfect, is not exactly what we think of as a model is a model. It's, and I don't think we have to be. I think in our imperfection is also our beauty. Holiday Grinches. Fooey yuck, kinda bitter, kinda ah. Well, they say, well, why today? Fooey to all this stuff, smile, but why? When a grin will suffice, oh, but why be so nice? Well, I guess it too will pass. Fooey, maybe not. Fooey? Well, maybe even my heart will see the gifts of community. Just bear with me for a bit. I may not quite fit, may not quite be what you expect from me. Yet my heart may need to be shown some love too. For a puzzle I may be unlocked, still beauty. Maybe not a classical piece, simply fooey. A bit of ah and I, wondering why.
Love it.
Thank you.
That was not your self poem though. You
No,
wrote.
my self poem I still haven't found.
Oh, okay. You still haven't
Oh
found
wait,
your.
I found it. I found it. You see, you are so good in that. I did a
It's
quick
kind of a
one
mental
because I
telepathy
think
thing.
I
That
kind of think my self poems are my poems.
yeah.
But I did a little quick one before. Self reflection, a mirror of sorts. Yesterday's lessons, tomorrow's gifts, today's gifts, tomorrow's possibilities. I've realized my strengths, my weaknesses, the legacy of light, love, paths shared, learning the value of voice in its myriad of forms. Self may be more a tale of we. That is mine.
I muted myself. Thank you. That was marvelous. I love that.
Thank you.
So, so I did one. I love that you picked self. I thought that was a great subject matter. And was it a fun exercise for you? Yeah.
Yes, and I like to, and I like I said, I like to do that. I do that on. I've had musicians look at me funny because I asked them to play a riff. I asked them to play something, and I sing a song.
Yeah. No, you're very impromptu. You got a lot of talent because you can just like off the cuff do stuff.
Well,
That's marvelous.
I think, Annette, if you think about it, though, right? When we go, this is why when I write a lot of times, I go between lyrical and conversations, and I think our brains work like that.
Yeah.
When we want to go to the beach and put our feet in the sand, it's not I'm going to go to the beach and put my feet in the sand. I want to feel the warm sand surround me. Our mind is already doing those lyrics.
Yeah.
We just have to move.
While
We
I
just
drink
have to
my
move it out there.
coffee. While I drink my coffee. Coffee.
And
Oh.
yeah, you keep it up. I'm going to have your coffee.
I do
I'm
that.
going to get you to spill the beans and make coffee.
I'm just jealous because I have such a boring Midwestern accent that it's.
No, it's not. It's not boring.
Yeah. Well, mine is called Self. I wonder why. So let me see if I can. Self, you are resilient. You continually weather the storms of life, capable of overcoming treacherous waters, turbulences of strife, ignoring the doubts, amongst others, of the goals you will achieve. Your abilities are limitless, beyond what the mind can conceive. The insightfulness and clarity you've gained countlessly have served you well. You know the importance of being humble, never allowing your head to swell, taking a stance against cowardly bullies, feigned comments, attacks to belittle, utilizing your own judgment, intelligent enough not to be drawn into the middle. Long ago, there was a time when insecurely you were swayed by the voice of doubt. Silently musing the stance in question, you attained astute wisdom worthy of clout. You have learned to devalue what others think, self credibility, the summation earned. Life has been your ultimate teacher, given the priceless gifts of the ability to discern. Proudly through the years, I have observed you. You embrace your importance of self. Love of you, you have achieved. Do not let your endeavors collect dust on the shelf. That's my uh, contribution, I guess.
Wow, I love that. I feel like hugging you after that one. That was great.
Oh, thank you. Know, you just I look at you and I think he's just like a teddy bear. You just want to like hug him or something. So you just have that huggable look. So if you're closer, we could maybe hug. But yeah, we're
Yeah, 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 yeah.
well in the poetry world, we're like neighbors because
Well, we are, and we do kind of similar
yeah,
things, which is kind of cool.
yeah,
And that's what I think is so interesting. If you think about the reach of some of our sites that we
yeah.
have together, it's pretty out there.
Yeah.
And you can
One
take it.
thing I wanted to get together for my birthday weekend that I'm not going to be able to do, I'm afraid, unless something miracle happens, but it's not going to happen. But I wanted to do a poetry retreat.
Right.
And it's my birthday is July 8th, so it's that weekend. And I was going to rent a big place and people could come and we could just, hang out and do
Hmm.
stuff and write and whatever. Anyway, it's my dream someday, perhaps. But
Well, and I think, the idea of even just getting together, calling or doing other things, like when I called that person, and there's some other ones that I've met up with, and
yeah.
it is good because the idea is, I've reached out to some people and just say, when you're really challenged with something with somebody, call and I'll call you back eventually. I may not call back immediately because I may be tied up with something,
Yeah.
but I'll call and respond or do something, and that's the thing is we have to take some of it off of just being inanimate, that we're not really people, that some people have as a perspective when you're dealing with an online person,
Yeah.
to, if
Yeah.
you take it a little bit further, it can be a life raft for that person who's really feeling isolated,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
needs some out, it needs just some encouragement of some sort.
Yeah. I wrote one that I went to go visit about a year ago, a patient in a nursing home, and all of the patients are on ventilators. And every
Hmm.
time I went, she'd want me to, read a poem, and she would glow afterwards. She's on this ventilator, but her eyes and her smile, and she would just glow. And the last time I saw her, she, mouthed the words, "Will you remember me?" I think I might have sent that video to you. I don't know if you watched it or not. But it's such an important poem. It's just because I think we all want to be remembered,
And I
somehow.
think in some way, I mean, I don't think you can take away the energy that's touched somebody. If you think about it, it's really inhaled, it's really absorbed, it's really worked into, whether it's good or bad. That's why I'm like, people that think they're doing nothing and not having an impact, they're still doing something,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's still having an impact. So
yeah.
you might as well, put the pebble in the pond. You might as well watch those waves radiate out. You might as well have a chance at something happening.
I meet people all the time who say to me, "God sent you to me today. There's a reason why we've met or we've touched each other, and I really believe that there's a reason why people are put in our paths very often. Where they can.
Well, you want to hear a funny story from yesterday? I went out to hear an amazing jazz singer, and I went there by myself, and as you could tell, I'll talk to people.
Well,
So
yeah,
yeah,
you
really,
seem
right?
kind of shy to me, a little reserved.
Yes. So I sat down. So I sat down next to somebody, and she asked me if I'd seen the singer before, and I said no, but she told me a little bit about her, and then she told me that she did art, did paintings, was involved a little bit in the holistic community too. So I exchanged cards at the end, and we had some nice conversations during it. But the funny thing about it is that you can see how energy attracts with healing, and with even just conversations and friends.
Yeah,
She waited for them to hang out, to meet some of the people. I walked out, got caught in the crowd, and there's like 800 people, I think.
yeah.
When we walked out and got to the bottom of the steps, we were together again, side by side.
Oh, yeah.
And then when we got to the parking lot where the cars were, our cars
Mhm.
were next to each other.
Wow, wow,
And you
wow.
talk about that, it's like I think the contacts we
Mhm.
make sometimes, or the people we run into sometimes, there's definitely something to, some aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a little, it's sometimes it's beyond coincidence how some of these things happen.
yeah. That's true.
And it's refreshing, it's refreshing because it's
It
nice
is
to,
refreshing.
you know, like I grew up with that idea of, you should be kind of, I hear people that, you should be singing in this spot, you should be doing this in that spot, you shouldn't be talking to the stranger, or you shouldn't be not necessarily in my household, but you'd hear that out.
Yeah,
And my premise is that with all the negative advertising, with all some of the rants, with all some of the other things going on where they're pushing this stuff out everywhere, I think we should be able to read something in a well, let me read you this one poem,
please do.
because
I'm
this
going to
is
get you
on
to
this is
say.
on a topic like it. Because I sing in parking lots, I sing all over the place, and this is kind of
You,
about that.
you can sing to us at any time, also, sir.
Yes. Committed? Why? Was it something I said? So I sing in an empty parking lot. Would you commit a disenfranchised canary? Not everyone sings to the same tune. Before a hasty conclusion, maybe listen to the song. Maybe you just might sing with the canary too.
Nice. Give us something else.
Yes. So funny thing. So these two. Let me go into this one fast. Poet or not, life is so lyrical. Not always empirical, though sometimes we spiral. Other times, one step two, walks different, the same. No hurry, lame. We need hurry too. Not too much, all the same. Life not always played like a game. For lyric lists or lyrics be, it's far better when we see the gifts, the possibilities life gives us. You and me, grammatically incorrect, but lyrically, I needed the offset. There's beauty in imagery, just as seeing one soul reflect what we've seen, so others can share in tale and time, yet the beauty and the rhyme.
Nice. Do you
Thank
have
you.
something fictionalized that has like some imagery in it? Anything
That
like
has
that?
what in it?
Like fictionalized that might have some imagery in it or something like
Yes, let me give you, yeah, hold on. Can we do a meditation fast?
Oh, you know the what? This is your show. You can do whatever you want
Oh,
here.
okay, hold on.
You are in control.
Yes. So I'm going to let's do this one first because it's in my hand. The breeze one day whispered softly, where are my friends? Where are the clouds? The blue sky so brilliant, they invite sunrise to paint. The birds high up dancing, the tales that tell of the winds of change, the wonders of old, the timelessness of love and loss, the light that whispers on through hearts kept there like lockets, tales of yesterday stored in the earth's cycles itself. Spring's renewal, fall's celebration of change, of preparation. Winter's crystalline gifts. Though chill, they warm our hearts. Summer simmers as if a celebration, a song of wandering, of bounty, of love found. For what better gifts than being at peace, at one with, seeing the beauty that surrounds, The wind whispered once more, is love only what we've been told? Then realized the revelation indeed, it's the gifts that stir our hearts, that center us. Give our breath reach, that totality of being, not simply in a moment, but intrinsic in its weave. The gifts of first breath, dreamed realities, heart scenes shared, even the stars in the sky, then dancing as the wind sings of the gifts of unity, being part of a tapestry that binds us all. May we heal, love our dreams we realized. Those cycles of life remind of the gifts when we raise each other up, carry each forward as if we share one heart, beating as one. In unity in our challenges and our celebrations, my hopes for us moving onward, regardless of where we've come from, that we may walk together for one another. Those hearts resonating as one.
Beautiful. You write beautifully.
Thank
You
you.
write. You write. Your writings are very heartfelt.
Thank you. That was why when you were saying before about self, I think my poems are kind of a I put
Yeah.
myself out there in my poems all the time.
Yeah, I try. Well, I do sometimes, and then sometimes I write very fictionalized stuff, and people think it's about me, but it's not. Can I write? Can I share one with you?
Of course, I love that.
This is the Menagerie of Broken Dreams. So this is a totally fictionalized thing. In the twilight of her mind, her thoughts randomly played reels of bygone years, disseminating into fractured memories. Pieces of broken glass, arranged in a calculated array of art, a mosaic, fragmented yet cohesively dispersed into a pastoral scene. With clarity, now recalling the meadow that haunted her conscience, in a land beyond the reach of dreams, hidden beyond a cobweb cloak. For it was the meadow that taught her a kiss was more than conjoining lips. It was a symphony of emotions orchestrated into a crescendo of dance, a waltz of warm, moist merriment, embodied in an entangled duet. Eyelids slowly close, the shades of the orbs of intoxicating blue now hidden. In the twilight of her mind, a Renaissance masquerade. Her broken dreams, now a kaleidoscope of menageries, as an isolated tear cascades down her alabaster cheek. That's it.
Well, I love the visuals in it.
Thank you.
Very touching and right to the last line.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
I appreciate it. So I'm going to ask you a question. I ask almost everybody that comes on here,
Yes,
and always like to hear the answers. I got a couple of questions I want to ask you.
of course.
So one of them is tomorrow you come across Aladdin's lamp. You get three wishes. You can wish whatever you want. Doesn't have it could be something selfish. It doesn't have to be whatever. But I want to know what you'd wish for.
Okay, so two of them are going to cut. So I'm part of. I've had some experiences with being involved with people that have committed suicide before. And between that and domestic violence, two of the wishes would be to break those links, to break those chains,
Yeah.
because of the impact that they have on so many. And sometimes it's generational, and sometimes it's, sometimes it's not, but its impact is just so vast that it would be a blessing if we could just change, because it's like it seems like one frame in the movie, if we could take one aspect that changed one step and put something else in, sometimes it can change a life.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
That's
for
amazing.
the
Yeah.
third one, for selfishness, a copious amount of chocolate.
dark, dark milk. What kind of
Dark,
chocolate?
of course. You see, now we can be friends.
Is it milk or is it dark?
Dark chocolate, no.
Oh,
Dark
thank
chocolate.
you. Now we can be friends.
Hopefully, Annette, hopefully with raspberry on the side, or raspberry chocolate. Raspberry is like, if you had raspberry, there is something called, and I digress, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's chocolate tartufo, which is an amazing Italian dish, I think.
Mhm.
And it's like vanilla ice cream, raspberry, like a raspberry gel inside, and then dark chocolate on the outside, and it's to die for.
Sounds wonderful with
If
that
you could put
vanilla. with that vanilla in it. I'm gonna tease you. I don't care. I'm doing that just to get on your good side. I'm sure.
Oh well,
Um,
that's
I like that vanilla. I like it. You know,
it's a,
I
it's a,
always,
it's
I
the
always,
con you know, and you think about it, right? That's what language is. Language is a part of the contrast, the adding an element to it, right?
yeah.
If you just assign, you think about it. If we just write a history of a day, I got up, I went out, I went, this happened, this person ran
That
into
is a
something.
great title for a poem. The history of a day.
Yeah, but you lose the actual physical essence of the day or the other, you miss the emotion of what happened. The
Yeah.
kiss when a war is over, that's famous from World War II, when a sailor was kissing somebody in between,
Yeah.
caught some of the, it's finally, we can have a life again. And what a
Right.
wonderful world. It's there's a Vietnam element to that, where they talk, you have Agent Orange destroying trees, and you have trees of green that he's
Yeah.
singing about.
I
The
like
beauty
it.
of
Do you ever
people.
sing Smile?
Was that?
Do you ever sing Smile?
No.
Smile, though your heart. You don't like that one?
Smile, though your heart is breaking. I haven't, but it'd be fun to sing. I
Yeah,
sing.
you know who wrote the music, right?
I'm sorry.
Do you know who wrote the music to that?
No, I get better at. I'm one of those people that I've gotten better at knowing the ones that I sing or knowing the ones that I research, and then trying trying to give it an essence of what it is. Some of them are so touching that you have to like look at it, and then you have to get past the, like there's songs that are wartime songs. There's songs that are based on loss, but are also based on the gifts. There's tons, and you have to get the emotion in, and then express it through. But that would be a beautiful one to sing. I lost you.
I must need to get a new camera because it's done this twice. This is why we were late today. I was having problems where it just disconnected. So, but I knew, Jody, even though I was gone, that you could handle it. That somehow you were there just taking care of the situation in the
Well,
background.
you were with me in spirit during that moment.
I was. What did you do?
Yes,
Anything exciting while I was gone?
I picked up a poem I think you'll like.
Okay, take it away, sir.
Love, love carries us like a summer breeze, touches us with the depth of its seas, simmers like a good tea, brings us to our knees. Its blessings, like the shadows, its grace lifts others up. Shared, it gives hope. That breeze, a whisper in our hearts, set in motion by tolerance, acceptance, vision of a better day, possible with love.
Nice. Thank you.
Here's
Um,
a satirical one a little bit. I think you like. I'll say it fast because I know we're running low on time here too.
No, you're well. We go over a lot. We went over 30 minutes yesterday. It just depends on your time constraints.
Oh,
So,
did you? Okay. Well, I'm lucky. I'm pretty good today. One day I tripped over a thought. Like a bump, I neatly stepped over it. Reluctant to move on, I stopped and pondered. Was this a roadblock or a test? A discovery or an impasse? Often, whether it's a gift or an issue depends on our perception. That lovely stream we step over, enchanted or slows our path. Breathe in the beauty or rush past. The thought tripped over may be now gratuitous, for it reminded me of so many gifts.
nice, nice. You have a lot of humanitarianism in your writing, actually. You
I
can tell that you're a very kind and caring person by your writing.
Thank
So,
you. I appreciate that.
yeah. I mean, it's very much reflected. And it's just you have a very loving and caring style about you. And I mean, don't you ever write anything out of anger?
Okay, so I do, but it's
Okay, just wondering.
It's really funny because I'm one, I'm like the bear, as you can figure out. You were talking about the Huggy Bear, and also I'm like 6 foot and 250 pounds,
Mhm.
and it's like years ago, I would kind of internalize. And one of the things about language that's so great is that you can dissipate some of the extremes of some things by talking about it early,
Yeah,
venting, expressing, having conversations, realizing what's really going on. Before I would slam a door and it would pop off a hinge. And
yeah. I always
I've
tell
learned,
when I did psycho, I always, especially the kids, that had a lot of behavioral problems. I always say, you gotta strike when the iron's cold, not when it's hot. You
right.
gotta walk
And
away.
learn how to do things when it's hot, like go for a walk,
Yeah,
like do other things to, I
yeah.
would I would do that over the years, and
We
it was
have Alan here from the UK. This is Alan Johnson who does my videos. He's the voice behind the poets. I don't know if you've heard him before.
nice to see you here, Alan.
Have you ever heard his stuff before, Alan? His voice? He's like the
I
voice.
don't know. I look forward to it.
He's actually a musician. So he
Oh, cool.
composes the music, narrates, repeats, and puts the video together. He's like a one-stop shop. Boom. You give it to him
Nice. You
and
have to send me a link later.
yeah, I will. Alan, I was trying to think if I still had something on my computer because usually he has to send it. I don't know if you can send me something, Alan, of yours, but because he actually got a call from the actor Sir Anthony Hopkins about a year ago, I think, something like that.
Oh, how cool is
Who
that?
heard him on the BBC? I guess he played one of his pieces on there, and I guess he liked his voice as well. But I was thinking I had saved something on my download that was, oh, I'm coming home. I did save something, so I could theoretically show it, but so hear his voice. I'm coming home is a piece I recently wrote. I have an aunt who lives um, in Florida, and she, keeps talking about she's not well. She's going to be going home pretty soon, so she wanted me to write a poem. That's the title she gave it. And so then, as a surprise to her, I had Alan make it into a video. It's a very touching video, but he's one of my biggest fans. Is your family supportive of your endeavors as far as
Yes,
writing
yes.
and so forth?
Luckily, I have a lot of support. I'm kind of the only of the immediate family. My parents have passed, and my brother's passed, unfortunately. But other than that, yes. And I come from a family of that's pretty autistic. I come from my parents were both photographers. My brother was a professional one that was kind of world known. Did a lot of painting. He could etch
Nice.
glass into amazing patterns. I'm kind
Yeah,
of
that's
the
amazing.
I can, it's funny, Annette, how this works because I can get the visual and I can frame it in a camera, but I have no patience. Even though I was a science major at one point, I have no patience for the settings. I'm fine with
Mm.
setting it up. I'm fine with doing the other. And ask me to paint something, and I'm lost in a quarry. Ask me to do something, it's like I paint like you do. I paint lyrically.
Yeah, word art. I've
Yeah, and
read
I think
about
that's
that.
what this is about. It's because we don't know we don't know what language we need to communicate with each other. From stage to, and I kind of one thing I've been working on trying to get, and I've been attending, like I attended a theater group a while back at a thing, but they were organizing some functions. Is I've been trying to get different versions of the arts and different groups to work together more. Where painters, poets, musicians, we should be sharing
Yes.
more events and lose some of the snootiness that often comes with some of these groups.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, I think that I worry. I think people are starting to try to promote it again, but I think poetry has gone by the wayside for so long. And I really want this, kind of revival of poetry in our society. I mean, it should never go out of vogue. And I ask people every day, do you like poetry? And 80% of them say no. And then I say, do you like music? Oh yeah. Well, songs are poetry to music. There you go.
And
And so
that's what they don't get. And there's
Well,
poetry in their day.
I say there's some poetry I don't like. You're not going to find, just because you even like poetry, that every piece that you listen to you're going to enjoy, right? But
I was invited to a friend's group. That's he does a quarterly publication, and I didn't participate because what I like to do is I like to start off with a topic. I think you kind of do it too. You start off with the topic, and then you do a circle, then you come back to the topic. I like to do that, and I also like it to be a little bit on the upswing at the end of it. Because
yeah,
if you write, I understand how somebody can write about down things in their life, but if you write about down things in your life enough, you can get people to follow it, you can get people to identify with it, but the problem is sometimes they get lost in it and they're swimming in it.
yeah, no, you got to step outside the box. I tell people that all the time. You can't stay there forever. You need to write about, you can't. I mean, if
Right.
you're in a funk, write about it, but then get out of your funk. You got to write out, because you're going to stay there mentally if you keep doing
That's
that.
what happens. The same way
Yeah.
if somebody was in a relationship where they were used to arguing, where they were used to having issues, if they
Yeah.
don't make a person, my wife and I were both married. We're on the third marriage. So the
Yeah.
joke is that we didn't realize that, and it's my joke, of course, but we didn't realize we were playing tic tac toe with two X's and then one we could hug.
Right, right.
But
Exactly.
the way we both changed the pattern was though that we made specific things about what we needed to change in us
Yeah.
and what we were willing to accept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
if you don't
I
do
think a
that,
lot of it with marriage, and don't, I've done it too twice. I've been strike two, I'm out. But I think that I've learned a lot as far as what to do and not to do. But I think that very often, people go into a relationship thinking that there's things about somebody that they might not particularly care for that they're going to change. And I think they need to realize that you need to accept them for who they are on the onset, because if they don't change, then you're stuck with that person, right? So,
and often as you know, it doesn't change. It
yeah.
just
And
tends
we live
to.
in a very disposable society. Nobody really wants to work on relationships. I always say, that you have to water and fertilize the grass, otherwise it doesn't grow. And the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It has lots of
Right.
weeds in it, and it still needs to be mowed. You
Well,
know?
there's definitely, it's a fast food mentality a lot of times.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You
Yeah,
know,
indeed, indeed.
and
Yeah, yeah,
go back to the poetry part of that element though, right? Because a lot of the intrigue, a lot of what actually keeps us captive in a story, a lot of the long term thing is the journey.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like,
And
I think about,
the journey is a very important part of it, though. I think it was interesting, that book I suggested earlier to you. I'm trying to close out this comment. The one about the Ferrari, the man who,
yeah, the
um,
Ferrari and the monk.
yeah. So, basically, just a synopsis is about a fictionalized story about a man who's a lawyer, high profile, very successful, has everything, including the red Ferrari. And he's in court one day, drops of a heart attack, right? So he goes in the hospital. He doesn't go back to work. He sells everything, totally changes his life, goes to India. He's trying to look for this monk society that he's heard about that lives in the Himalayas, and nobody knows if it's a myth or really there, because nobody's ever seen them. They're a secret society. And he finally runs into the monk, and then the monk takes him in to tell him all of his wisdom on the condition of that he spread that word and that wisdom to everybody else. But one of the important things that I remember it teaching there is this: no matter what has happened in your life, and what you've gone through, even though it might have been something horrific, that ultimately, that isn't a mistake. It was there for a reason, and you just build upon it. Your stepping stone to
All right.
what
So
becomes what
my only
you.
premise with that, my only
Okay.
downslide of that is that I don't always think everything is there for a reason. I think we can interpret from it. I think we can try to move past it. But I guess I've seen so many atrocities sometimes that I know of enough that some of those, I think the meant to be thing isn't always there, where somebody's like, well, it wouldn't have happened if it
Mhm.
wasn't meant to be. Well, I think sometimes things happen, and like I said, it's that downside of humanity versus the upside of humanity, and we need to reach higher and do better.
Well, I agree that, yeah, and I think what you're trying to say is that sometimes we have choices and we don't, you know, maybe need to. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, no, I
That
think it's more than that. I think
okay,
sometimes it's a religious concept
okay,
that, like, if my neighbor was murdered, or I had such and such happen, that was meant to be. I should be learning from it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Sometimes people take
yeah,
some of these things to extremes, and
yeah,
no, I think you know like abuse. I think no, these shouldn't have been subjected to it. It's not something that should have happened. It's
yeah,
something falling through the system.
right, right,
It's something that should have been caught. And like I said, I think we just need to do better. Like
yeah,
this thing of silence, to so many things, you know, I mean, it's so many things are allowed to not be to not be, ongoing as a conversation. But yet I know, like what you're saying, when I was dealing with things, you had to weave it. You had to weave the whole. Sometimes I had to pick up a whole picture of something in order to get the form of it. Like when I remember when I was young, I had an uncle passed away, and he was attached to everything in the hospital, which is typical. And I saw him when he was withered. And as young, it was hard to get that picture out. But what helped me get the picture out of my head was realizing the totality of who he was. He was an amazing carver. He would do these Shakespearean plays on like 6 foot, these Shakespearean carvings of plays or images on like 6 foot murals. And
wow,
and had this amazing talent, and he was full of life for years. And that's what we got to take in. I think we got to always remember the whole picture of some of these things.
yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that is probably most important about us as people is that we're able to gain new perspective. You know,
Yes,
um, because if you're stuck in your ways and how you think, and you're not able to think outside of your thought processes and really understand a new concept or a new way of thinking or a new, just a new spin on something. It's very important, I think, for us to be able to embrace those things.
you're right.
But,
You're right. And I
yeah,
think that is important. And that's part of, really, to have eyes open, you have to do that.
yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, you're just seeing the same old story, which puts us into the same old. When you're involved in a cyclical conversations, when you have a conversation, it just keeps leading you to the same spot. There's no sense staying on it. You might as well make a turn,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, because
yeah,
it's just going to end the same way. So those are the type of ones where when I'm talking to a friend or talking to somebody else, I'll be like, I understand. I still respect you for your opinion, but
we've been down this road before and it led to a dead end, so let's just move
yeah, it's
on.
led to the same spot. So you're doing the old Einsteinian thing of trying to get different results from the same story.
Yeah, yeah, not going to work, right?
No,
Yeah, that's amazing. So, do you feel like writing is something that, well, let me say it this way, not necessarily writing, because I suppose anybody can pick up a pen and write, but someone who does it well, do you think that that person has a gift, or do you think it's something that's learned?
I think it's, I think that's what I always am told and always hear. And I think the ability to put things, I think we have different gifts. We have different gifts and different abilities. I think, all those different, I think of the brain as having all these different microprocesses like a computer and having these little subcompartments. And I think sometimes if you plant things like seeds, like assigning stars to imagery at night, or thinking about ideas and put those, that your brain will continue to work on them.
Yeah,
And so I think sometimes it's also like a learned thought process, that just because I think we're doing some of these things sometimes, like I think we are poets on a certain level, because we're interpreting things on a level basic than give me, on more than give me food, shove it down my throat. No, it's, I want to taste it. I want to have the palate. I want to know what it is. I want to have it be a subtlety. I want to have it make me go, ah. We're just not always
I think
voicing it,
I
but
think
there's a poet
poets,
inside.
yeah, I think poets can innately be able to dissect things and look at them differently. You know what I
I
mean?
think so. I think so. And the same thing when we go back to music, or we go back to a good critic of something
Mhm.
that catches the nuances of something, because
Yeah,
it's the nuances that often make you choose between one and another, right? It's not the hard and fast things,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree
you
with
know.
that.
But so do I think we have, I think the chorus of humanity is made up by people that have different talents, that have different ways of communicating, different ways of speaking. And even when they're simple, like a smile, I think it speaks an ocean, or it speaks a volume of things. And I think, from somebody, I still think that the tallest person is the person that reaches down to help somebody and to understand somebody that's having a hard time expressing themselves.
That's an interesting concept. I've never thought of that.
I'll give you an example of something that happened recently. There's in one of the places I was working, there was a gentleman who, he's got to be like, in the remember the story of Mice and Men, the famous
My
story
man,
of,
John Steinbeck.
yes. So he kind of reminds me of the guy in the story, the big guy. He's like 6'4", 340 pounds maybe, but he's like a sweet, very intelligent 16-year-old. With an implicit, with that almost, I don't know if it's autistic, but with that memory, that ability to remember something like a date 5 years back and know what day of the week it was.
Oh wow, yeah,
With that eccentric side.
yeah.
But anyway, he'd go by sometimes walking where I was at working, and he'd be talking about some cartoon character or some new release of a movie that was, what's the movie with the three witches, or the two ones with Bette Midler and
Oh,
Charm, not Charm, you know what I
the
mean.
Witches of Eastwood, or
No, 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 the newer one. They re-released it. It's the one where they're flying and going through their thing, and it's Bette Midler, and it's the two or three of them.
it's a new movie.
It came out like a year or two ago.
Oh, I'm so far out
It's a
of that.
re-release. It's a really re But anyway, he was so excited about it that he knew when it was in its development and when it was going to get released soon. So I was working at one job, and they were giving out posters if you bought certain things. And I got like three posters, and I dropped them off to us. And I haven't worked at that other spot where he's at, but I know he's still working there. So I dropped him off like three of those posters the other day. So so he could, and that's the thing, is just doing. I mean, it's not a big thing to me. It took me 5 minutes, but it shows somebody was listening.
And it shows that you're thinking about them, and
Right,
you thought into it.
right. And we can't judge anybody's quality of life.
Right.
When we see somebody walking with a handicap or walking with something else, maybe
Yeah.
the handicap is our perception.
Yesterday, I went to see somebody, and she was fairly young, and she had her mother in there, and she's only maybe in her 40s, and had a massive stroke. She can't talk. She has expressive aphasia, so she can't
Hmm.
talk. She knows everything that's going on, but she can't talk.
Right.
And I could see her frustration.
Hmm.
And and I said, and she hates it at this nursing home. And I said, I suppose you have a lot of people who, since you can't talk and express yourself that way, you don't think that you know what's going on, or and don't think that you're thinking you know exactly what's going on. You're just unable to express yourself. And she was like, yeah. And I said, that has to be horribly frustrating, to be able to be there and have so much to say and not be able to say it, you know.
Well, again, we're going back to that thing of, that's one of the reasons that I think the arts, poets, we should be the diplomats of some of these things when people are struggling,
Yeah. You
and
need to
helping
write a
people
poem.
to
I
reach
need
out
to
and
write
use
a
their
poem
voice.
about it. You need to write a poem about it.
Yeah.
Um, what I want you to do, dear sir, is share another poem with us, and then we're going to wrap it up at about an hour and 20 minutes. And you got other things to do. I have charts calling my name. Um,
Yep.
and then
Well, we got Of course, we've got somebody coming home. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, 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 no. That's okay. That's okay.
Let me see what I can find. I don't know if you need to mute me for a second.
Well, I could, but you raise your hand when you come back, and I'll unmute
Um,
you, or you can unmute yourself. Yeah. And somebody said it was called the witches. That's what they said. All right. Um. So, Jody, are you ready to talk?
yeah.
Well, okay, you ready? You got it?
Yeah, I'm back now, I think. Let me just read
Okay.
this one as a leave off. And thank you so much for having me, Annette. It's really been a pleasure talking to you. Deep in thought I was one day, for my brothers and sisters sang of the wind, of yesterdays that seemed too brief, tomorrow's light. Now, more than a whisper in the night, my brothers and sisters sang one day of the sound nature made, when we dare to see the music set harmonically, of tides and wind, of the moon and the stars, the whispers in the night. Now, just a bit louder. Deep in thought, I searched far and wide. My brothers and sisters sang of the wind, of yesterdays that seemed too brief. The light carried on. Those whispers now tangible, deep in thought. I was one day.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, it's been a true pleasure, Jody. I very much appreciate your agreeing to come here and be on Pop Chat with me. It's been a pleasure. I've loved listening to your poetry. You have very wonderful, deep, insightful, heartfelt poetry, and you recite it very well as well. So, thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
thank thank you, Annette, for being here and hosting. It's a fabulous thing to bring poetry alive and to have it out there. I appreciate it. I look forward to have more conversations with you and sharing on things.
Yes. Well, so love and blessings to everybody. Thank you for
Yes,
watching us. We'll
yes,
get to your comments later. And have a great day, everybody.
yes.
Bye-bye.
Take care, all. Bye bye.
Bye.